What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday we had the quarterly results released from Nintendo that covers their holiday period through October, November, and December, and they also responded to concerns around the Switch 2 launch and how it's going to go when it comes to resellers and the amount of stock that's available. We'll go over all of that, though, here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Valve as that Steam console is back in the news, and in this case, it seems like it might be more capable than we were expecting. And then we also had that Capcom Showcase that, yes, showed us a lot of their games that we've already seen, but also one pretty cool reveal at the end. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps it a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button down below. And we're gonna start today with Shuhei Yoshida, who's been making the rounds recently in all kinds of interviews. And the most recent one that I saw was with MinMax. And there was kind of an interesting answer that he had for the scariest moment that he remembers at PlayStation. We can see this, though, this transcribed. This is with Radic over on Twitter X. Shuhei says, the biggest shock I had from the competition was Nintendo's announcement of the 3DS, not just about the hardware. The one announcement they made was that Monster Hunter 4 is going to come out on 3DS exclusively, and they dropped the $100 price after the launch. So, yeah, I mean, when the 3DS and the Vita first came out, they're pretty much the same price. Then Nintendo said, no, we gotta slash the price of the 3DS, moved it down $100, did the Ambassador program for anyone who bought it immediately at that higher price point, and then locking up Monster Hunter, which is massive in Japan, which before it was really on the PSP in terms of handhelds. All of that really showed how cutthroat and serious Nintendo was at that time, with Sony showing up there with the Vita and it being very, competitive early on with the 3DS, and those kind of moves show that Nintendo wasn't messing around. And yeah, as you can see there, even now, Shuhei remembers it as like the scariest moment when it comes to competition at Nintendo. Also, we had another Microsoft game get announced, or two games get announced for PlayStation 5. This was posted up. This is over on the Age of Empires website, with Age of Mythology Retold heading to PS5. That will be happening March 4th. And then in the spring at some point, Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition will be heading to PlayStation. You're going to see crossplay, the whole deal across the board here, which would include PS5, PC, and Xbox. I have a feeling when the Switch 2 gets revealed, which we've talked about that, the potential of the mouse functionality seems like it matches up perfectly for something like this. So yeah, I would expect that probably to be thrown in there in the mix as well. But it also feels like every week we're getting an announcement now of a Microsoft game going to PlayStation, in this case, two of them, and now they're really loading up spring, at least the next few months, seemingly, with games set up for the PlayStation platforms. Who knows? We'll see what happens next week. Maybe we get that Master Chief Collection announcement on a random Wednesday. Oh, and it looks like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth did indeed have a very good launch on PC. This we can see posted up. This was from Matt Piscatella saying, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth had a fantastic Steam launch across physical and track digital. Rebirth was the best-selling game of the week, ending January 25th in the US market. That's with just dollar sales, while the FF7 Remake and Rebirth Twin Pack ranked third. So that's from the Circana retail tracking service, and this once again plays into what Square has really talked about, being more multi-platform focused as opposed to just launching solely, say, on the PlayStation 5, which if these are the numbers now for Rebirth on PC, which a year after it came out on the PlayStation 5, basically, what would they have been if it came out at the same exact time, like same exact time at launch? What would these PC sales look like? I feel like it would have been much better. And if you think about it, yes, some people do double dip. Oh, I got on the PS5. Oh, I also want it on PC. When it's a game of that size and how long it takes to play through, to be honest, you kind of go through it. Maybe you got the Platinum Trophy, maybe you didn't, but you look back and you go, do I really want to do all that again? Because that could be 100 hours spent playing 3 different games, or maybe another massive RPG instead of going back through it again on just better looking visuals. Would have been nice to have either the PS5 Pro or the PC version day one, though, because that base PS5 version definitely needed some help back then. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo and their recent quarterly financial report. This covers October, November, and December, so their holiday season, right? This most recent one, and it's typically when you'd expect their sales to be higher than the rest of the year. And I mean, they technically were. But this also shows some of the effects of a system that's about to turn 8 years old, because it wasn't a great report for Nintendo. And it seems like, okay, let's get the Switch 2 going here soon. So we can see, though, this over on their website for their investors relations, with the Switch now at 150.86 million sold. So that would be 4.82 million units that sold in this last holiday quarter. The software is now up to 1.359 billion units. That's quite significant. Again, you want to sell a lot of software. Seems like they're doing that here. I'd say at a pretty good ratio to the 150 million or so systems that they have. And in fact, Daniel Ahmed did point out that the Switch is the second fastest system to 150 million consoles. It's second to the DS, of course, but like 94 months for the Switch, 133 months for the PlayStation 2 to get there from launch date. So that's pretty quick. It's a very big difference from the Switch to the PS2, which is like the best-selling home console to date. It seems like the Switch should be able to pass the PlayStation 2 lifetime, but it also looks like, just in general, Nintendo's sales and their hardware is down quite significantly. Net sales, profit, all this stuff down 35 to 40% year over year. Their hardware down 30%, and you kind of see how they're moving here. Their revised hardware number is now down to 11 million units. That means they expect to sell another 1.5 million Switch systems to close out this fiscal year. That'll be ending March 31st, so not a lot of confidence on Nintendo's end that they are going to sell a bunch of systems here to close out. Remember, they started the year expecting with a forecast of about 13.5 million units, and they've now moved all the way down, with them downgrading a couple times to 11 million. And to be honest, I have some questions if they're going to even be able to get to that. And that's just what happens when you have a system that's been on the market for so long and you've already sold 150 million of them. Yeah, you start to run out of people to sell it to. But also, they have technically announced the Switch 2 at this point, more in an official capacity, shown it, and yeah, you get that effect of people just like, I'll wait. I'll see what's going to happen here April 2nd, and then I'll kind of evaluate and decide if I even want to get the current Switch or hold out and get the Switch 2 when it comes out, most likely this summer. That was actually a poll question I did ask, so we'll see kind of where you guys are landing when it comes to the release month. But for now, let me take a look real quick. We can see these would be the top games that have sold so far over the Switch's life. I think we're kind of locked in, by the way, to the top 5. Let's take a look at that real quick. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, 67.35 million pieces, which is absolutely ridiculous. The fact that so far throughout, I believe, this fiscal year, this has sold like 5 million more copies. It's just insanity. Animal Crossing New Horizons, that'd be number 2, 47.44 million. Smash Bros. Ultimate, 35.88. Then we have Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, 32.62, and then Super Mario Odyssey, 29.04. And that's a pretty good lineup for your top 5 games. But it also just shows how strong first-party software sales have been for the Switch. Go figure, that's Nintendo's big push here with their systems, but this, over anything else they've ever done, is like the high watermark. Oh, and they did put out some more information for investors. There were a few things, highlights really, I wanted to point out. Super Mario Party Jamboree, that came out halfway through October, has already sold 6.17 million units. Guys, that's in 2.5 months. That is absolutely ridiculous. It makes sense why they keep making Mario Party games. I get it. It's low cost, massive reward here. I mean, the margin on that is craziness. They do show that their annual playing users continue to grow, now up to 129 million players that have at least turned their Switch on at some point this past year and used it, so they continue to at least grow that user base. And then they did also mention that Pokemon ZA and Metroid Prime Beyond still slated for 2025, although I guess that's kind of expected at this point. Now, when it comes to their approach for next generation with the Switch 2, of course, there's a lot of concern around resellers, of course, them really snapping up a lot of this stock for the system and then doubling or even tripling the price depending on demand on a lot of secondhand markets. Well, Nintendo has mentioned it before, and they double down again with investors on a conference call. We can see this is posted up. This is over on Nintendo Everything with the president at Nintendo, Shintaro Furukawa, saying there was a time when the Switch was in short supply and there was a lot of reselling. It is important that we have enough units to meet demand, and we are proceeding with preparations for the release. So yeah, if you think back with the Switch, when it did come out, yeah, it was pretty tough to find that thing for quite a while. It was definitely like 2 years or so. And then with the pandemic that happened, we saw demand surge again, and it was hard to find at that time. Like, we were like 3 or 4 years into the generation, and it was being marked up, like above sticker, which is just weird, right? So Nintendo, of course, looking at this, however many they make for the first year, they're going to sell through them easy. And there have been discussions that they could eclipse 20 million systems that they ship to, like, for this fiscal year, this next fiscal year coming up, starting in April, of course, because they are also still looking to, shocker, release the Switch 2 in 2025. So I'm hoping Nintendo can flood the market to a degree, even though I don't think they're going to absolutely saturate the market with 20, even 30 million Switch 2 systems. But the more they can put out there, the better chance we all have to get this thing at retail price. And I'm hoping that also means they have a lot of plans for retail stores, because right now, having to try to go online for one of these, like, oh, you get in a line and you wait and hope that you get in. I'd rather just go to a Best Buy, a GameStop, a Target, and just get my pre-order in there and not have to deal with it, because in person, at least you get the receipt, you get your stuff set up, and you can even go pick it up on release day. And that would be my primary strategy at this time. So here's hoping Nintendo did indeed learn from what they saw with the first Switch when it came out, realizing, as they just mentioned, 129 million annual players. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people interested in the system, so they might as well make as many as possible as they head towards a summer release. Next up, let's talk about an interesting move that Sony has made when it comes to Bloodborne. And I know it's been teased over and over and over again, even with that 30th anniversary PlayStation trailer that they did, and at the end, Bloodborne and Persistence was right there. People really do think that Sony will eventually do something with this game. A remake, a remaster, a patch that allows it to go to 60 FPS. The bar is low for something like that. Like, that alone would make people really, really happy. Well, it seems that Sony is all of a sudden showing up and DMCA striking all kinds of stuff around Bloodborne, which not only includes the 60 FPS patch, but even a fan game, which we can see this posted up by PSU.com. Bloodborne's fan-made PSX demake project has been hit by a copyright claim by Markscan Entertainment, following last week's news that Lance McDonald's Bloodborne 60 FPS patch was struck down by a Sony DMCA takedown notice. In response, McDonald revealed that Markscan were hired by Sony Interactive Entertainment, and yeah, typically you'll see these larger companies, Sony and Nintendo, Microsoft, whoever, they'll hire these smaller companies whose job is basically act like a middleman and go around and try to find anything that would break trademark, copyright, that kind of stuff, and just rip it down. Nintendo, of course, infamous for this, as fan projects, well, they're not exactly fans of that. So here we see Sony all of a sudden, by the way, because this 60 FPS patch has been out there for a while, and Lance McDonald came back and said it wasn't necessarily the patch, it was just the use of the word Bloodborne that was the problem. Because that being like a trademark there that Sony wants to enforce now all of a sudden does get the wheels turning of, oh, are they doing something with Bloodborne? Because that would kind of line up then. You don't necessarily just go around and have this stuff ripped down because it's just for the fun of it. You feel like, okay, if you want to make sure that if somebody searches Bloodborne 60 FPS because you're doing a remake or remaster, it comes up with your game and not this 60 FPS patch that you need to have a modded PS4 to use and all this. You want it to point to your official product. So that's kind of where we are with this, and the hope is that, hey, maybe we'll see Sony show up at a State of Play or a PlayStation Showcase, and Bloodborne is there to close things out as the one more thing. Well, something we do know is it's probably not Bluepoint doing it, and you know what? That is an absolute shame to think, because that actually would have been perfect for them, especially after Demon's Souls. It all kind of lined up, but hey, somewhere within Sony, they said, no, we got to do a God of War live service game that we'll probably end up canceling in 2 years, so let's get on it. Next up, let's talk about Valve and the potential for a Steam console, which has already come up multiple times now, because it seems like Valve is working on something that's not a handheld, and would actually need HDMI out and seemingly would have chipsets that are related to AMD. And then you kind of start doing the math and you go, oh, would they really create a home console that might be able to go toe-to-toe with a PlayStation 5 and an Xbox Series? Well, the plot thickens a bit more here. We can see this posted up. This is over on Tweaktown. I started to see these stories pop up all over the place. They have a summary here. Valve is reportedly developing a next-generation Steam console, potentially featuring AMD's RDNA 4 powered GPU. Company's working on drivers for AMD's Radeon RX 9070 series, which is currently designed for desktops, so there's no laptop equivalent of that to my understanding here. This development suggests Valve's interest in creating a desktop console branded with the Steam OS license. Now, this is coming way of Extas, and they're kind of touch and go with this stuff, but it seems like their speculation is mostly around Valve working on drivers with AMD for, like, say, the 9070 series card here. And the only thing with that is the 9070 isn't supposed to be a cheap card. It's kind of like on the higher end technically. And if Valve makes a box that would be kind of like a console equivalent, I don't think they would go, well, it has to be $1,000. I feel like they learned their lesson with the Steam Deck, which was a great idea to come in and get that at $400. I don't think they're going to do something like that with a console. I think they'd probably get closer to the PS5 Pro in terms of pricing, but there's a lot that could go along with that, since you would have free online play with Steam. Like, you wouldn't be then having to pay $80 a year like you do with the PS5 to play online. So, okay, you start adding that all up and it starts to make a little more sense. Also, of course, the Steam pricing when it comes to sales and PC games, you can get some pretty good deals there. But we already see what they've done with the Steam Deck, which has gone well for them. And since there is a reason for them to subsidize a console that points you directly at their marketplace, yeah, they could take a little bit of a hit or at least break even on this system. But I still think it would be something that they would be price conscious of and not have like a 9070 or something equivalent in there. I think they would tone it back a bit, and it's possible, as I would assume, that they would have some sort of custom chip that they would develop alongside of AMD. Now, when it comes to the driver support here, there's a good chance that, yeah, they'd be working on drivers because they would have SteamOS maybe be set up for another company's console or box that they want to do, like how we had Steam machines back in the day. In this case, though, they would make a more refined and unified approach where everyone would use that SteamOS setup. So I like the idea. I would be interested to see what they could come up with, and also the competition of a box all of a sudden appearing that can technically play Sony games since they're on Steam, but then also Microsoft games because they're on Steam. That would be an interesting shakeup just for the overall market. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about that Capcom Showcase that took place yesterday. And to be honest, there wasn't anything too crazy in here, but there was one really cool announcement. So let's start from the top. We do have Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection that is out now on the Xbox. We already heard that there was a situation behind the scenes when it came to a pipeline or something with Capcom not being able to get it there day one with the other systems, but that Microsoft came in and worked with them to get it figured out, and indeed it appears they have, as that is now available to purchase on their platform. Fighting Game Collection 2, by the way, coming out May 16th. Onimusha, we did see more information on this, of course, that coming out 2026. They did go over some more information, which includes some of the big focal points, compelling characters. There's a new protagonist, the setting in Kyoto, and ultimate sword fighting action. They also mentioned they don't want it to be overly difficult. Like, they're not trying to make a Souls game. They're trying to make more of just an action game. So, as soon as I said that, I immediately thought of Ninja Gaiden 2. I mean, I just had the black edition of that, and that's not a Souls game. It's an action game that, yes, is difficult, but it's not like the punishing, smash your head against the wall over and over and over again style of the Souls games. So that's kind of what I'm envisioning here for the new Onimusha game as well. Then we have Onimusha 2, Samurai's Destiny. This is a remaster of the second game, and it is coming 2025. So that's, again, really, really cool to see that, getting people kind of caught up on the Onimusha franchise as we get a new one here. And I guess they're going to do 3 at some point, although it took years to get 2, so I'm not sure about that, but still really cool to get another Onimusha game here too, as we're waiting for 2026 to come around. And then they did an entire Monster Hunter Wilds showcase that awesome for Monster Hunter fans, I'm sure. And if you want to check the game out and see how it runs on your PC, there's even an entire benchmark tool out right now to download and put your video card and set up through its paces. So overall, as I mentioned, nothing mind-blowing here, but it was really cool to see a bit more information around something like Onimusha. I would have liked to have seen more or heard more about Okami 2, but it was more of them just running the trailer again and just reminding us that it existed. But I'm sure there's gonna be many, many more of these Capcom showcases throughout the year, and this is just the first one to kick off 2025. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. We're asked, what month do you expect the Switch 2 to launch? June is the leading one here, but look at this, August is right behind it. I don't know if Nintendo is going to wait until August because we just saw their numbers. It's not great right now. I think that would be a mistake for them to wait. That could be an issue to where they actually have momentum drop off a cliff, and that isn't great for a launch. I kind of feel like they've already waited too long actually for the Switch 2. Not that it's going to really affect its overall performance, say in its first year or anything. I don't know if the Switch 2 is going to outsell the current Switch. I think it'd be very difficult in general for any system. Obviously, if the Switch does pass the PS2, guess what? It's the best-selling system ever made. But I don't think Nintendo should be waiting too much longer to launch this thing, and I do think it's coming out in June. I think it'll be a quick turnaround from being shown in April to then launching, and it could even come as soon as, I think, late May. But if I had to take a guess, I'm going with June. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Dunk, who says, in today's modern gaming, Mega Man games are not AAA. It's a AA game that should go around $40 and just expect to sell between 1 to 2 million units. And as a Mega Man fan, I'm fine with that, as long as they keep pumping a game out every 5 or so years. Yeah, I think Mega Man can fit into that AA sort of category. They don't have to overthink it much. If it's your standard Mega Man or Mega Man X or Zero style game, the 2D platformer style. But if they look at something like Mega Man Legends, that's where I think it could teeter on almost AAA. It would be more expensive to do something like a Mega Man Legends versus a 2D style Mega Man or Mega Man X game. And that's where I have some more concerns around it, because that would just be more risky for Capcom, and if it doesn't work, it might make them more risk off when it comes to Mega Man. So at the very least, I think they should attempt a new Mega Man X game to see where that stands, and then kind of go from there. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to take a look, see how the PS3 online store is doing right now. I actually did a video where I spent some time exploring that, and it's actually pretty impressive when it comes to some of the classic games that are available at certain price points. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.